Ready to go live. I am live. Yay. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Satsang on this beautiful but cold fall day. So good to see you all here. Oh, look, people arriving very quickly today. I love it. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. So, Satsang. Many of you have been here many, many times before and are familiar with the idea, but anyone who's new here, well, everybody who's here, if you would be so kind as to just say hello and where you're listening from. Not everybody does it. Actually, there's the total number that are watching and the number that actually say hello is actually quite different. But especially if this is the first time you've joined me in a satsang, that would be I'd really love to know that. That would be very, very helpful and help me guide the conversation. So this is a place for you to kind of let go of the day and the past week and plans for the future, and just let yourself be 100% present right here in this moment. And what does that mean, to be present? Well, what it means is that your attention is not going into the mind, into its stories, into memories, comparisons, descriptions, stories. It's not trying to plan a future or aspiration. It's not trying to figure out what it can get in this moment. To truly be in this present moment is to simply be ultra sensitive to what's happening right here in this moment, without judgment, because judgment is always coming from the past or the future, without criticism, without any kind of story whatsoever, without any kind of judgment value whatsoever. You're simply being present with what you're feeling and what you're experiencing in this moment. And the whole intention of satsang is to cut through all of the mental noise that wants to comment about what we're experiencing, wants to create a story about it, wants to judge it or criticize it or evaluate it in some way. Satsang cuts through all of that, so you get to experience life as it actually is. The direct experience of things as they are. Now, it sounds simple, right? But we've all been conditioned to make an immediate association. An event happens, or we see something, we experience something, somebody says something, and immediately there's a story in our mind about the event that just took place, and then there's reactions to it and that sort of thing. And it happens so fast, and we've been so well trained into this, that we don't recognize that the event and the story about the event, or the interpretation of the event, or the comparison of the event, are not the same. It becomes so deeply entwined that we think our story about what's happening is in fact what's happening. And it never is. It's always an interpretation. It's always something that's added later. Now, when we're children, we don't do that. That's why they're happy all the time. Because it's a direct experience of things as they are. They don't have stories yet. They don't have interpretations. They've not given meaning to anything, negative or positive. So it's pure, undifferentiated consciousness. I mean, animals are the same way. A dog does not judge its its experience. It just has it, right? The beauty of the human being is that we have the opportunity. It's in the human form that consciousness is able to ponder itself. And in so doing, we begin to take apart the stories we have about ourselves and distinguish them from our actual selves, our actual experience, what we actually are. This is the process of satsang, this is the process of awakening, this is the process of genuine, non-dual spiritual inquiry, to distinguish between that which is story and that which is actually happening. And this is what we're here to do. This is the whole point of satsang. This is the reason I do this, because it is the most momentous, significant, and happiness-bringing thing you can possibly do. When you realize that, excuse me, whoa, when you realize that your story, your view of things, your perception is the totality of what you experience. Opening that perception, freeing it from all the imposed ideas and concepts, would literally free your life. It would free your experience. It would open you to have a vastly different experience and exchange with life. Life isn't what we think it is. The earth isn't what we think it is. The universe isn't what we think it is. You are not what you think you are. You are completely beyond anything you can possibly think or imagine. And there's only one way to come to see that clearly. And that is to step out of all of the stories. Remove every story, every concept, every idea, every memory, every association, until there's nothing left and you can't throw anything else out. And what's left? You. As you actually are. And that would include throwing out your name, your age, your gender, your race, all of it. Because all of those, all of those were laid on top. Name and form are intricately linked. They are a continuum. So you're not your name. You're not your body. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're none of your memories. You are none of those things. And this is, of course, the only reason why non-dual inquiry seems so difficult and even arcane. Right? It's because it isn't a gaining of knowledge. It's a dissolving and a disposing of knowledge. This knowledge is always descriptive. It's always describing one thing in terms of another. And so in order to describe yourself, you have to have some kind of an object you think you are to compare with something else. So in satsang, I'm going to invite you to be in this spirit, in this energy of simply wanting to know who you are and a willingness to dispense with anything that becomes clear that you're not. That's all it is. It is a seeing. It is a deep knowing. A knowing that is free of the whole subject-object relationship. It's a knowing. Not knowing yourself as something else, right? It's like somebody describing you, but knowing yourself directly from the inside, right? Where you've never actually seen yourself. You can't see yourself because you're one. You'd have to be two to see something, and you're one. Well, enough of that. Let me go say hello to people and invite your questions now. That's what Satsang is about. I just give my little prelude there so you have ample time to gather your thoughts, get into the energy of Satsang, and also for people to arrive. Hopefully my little tomes are valuable. John in Ireland. David and Elaine in England. Wonderful. Marlo. Dear Marlo, Wisconsin. Snezleia in Serbia. Hello to you. Ava in Poland. Crispin in Switzerland. Sasha in England. Oh, hello everybody. Oh, Patricia in Vancouver. Right. We got anybody from the U.S. yet? Ireland, Wisconsin. Yeah, okay, good. Good old Wisconsin. Jay in California. Hello, Jay. Truth Loops. And Truth Loops, you're in Texas, right? Hello, G and beautiful people. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Hola, Lisa. Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Much do you love my spiritual family. So good. Janet McGowan from Glasgow, Scotland. Penny, also in Canada. Nazarene in Ireland. John Watson also in Glasgow. Look at that. Emiliano in Sweden. Addison Barros in Cape Verdean, which is in Africa, yeah. And Christine, hello Christine. Daniel in Denmark. Wow. Tunisia in the house. Ferdeus, probably, yeah? Tunisia. Is this your first time here? I don't seem to remember Tunisia before, but maybe not. Rosario in Spain. Yeah, it's like almost all outside of the U.S. I think Liza's on the East Coast, so you got a couple here. Wow, amazing. This is wonderful. Himank, good to see you, my friend. All right, a question from you. Hello, sir. I haven't experienced the same high I experienced while being awakened in the last satsang. I've been trying to experience that same feeling again, but not able to. I know the truth I've experienced, but not able to continuously do so. Welcome to the Seeker's Dilemma, Himank. This is really good. And boy, I went through that a number of times before I finally truly grasped the truth, right? I know the truth, I have experienced it. Now, what you actually experienced was a high. It was a peak experience. It was an emotional release that grew out of a direct insight, okay? But the truth is not something you experience, right? If you experience truth, then it like everything else, experiences come and go. They rise and fall, don't they? I mean, look at your life. Look at everybody's life. It's simply the way things work. Now, truth, by definition, can't be something that fluctuates. It wouldn't be truth. It would just be a belief, right? So you haven't experienced the truth. The feeling you had, the experience you did have, was a direct result of seeing the truth that's always here. You can't possibly continuously maintain that kind of emotional peak. And as a matter of fact, you wouldn't want to. Any more than you'd want to experience a continuous grief. This is always going to be like this. Right? Truth is ananda. It is stillness. It is changeless. It is the background. Right? So when you say, I know the truth, right? Now look at that very carefully, as if the truth and you were two. and that truth was some kind of experience you had, some kind of a thought that you had, even some kind of an insight. The experience, the thought, the insight are all manifestations or expressions of the truth. They are not the truth. If they were, they would never have left in the first place in order to come, right? Because the truth is always true. It is self-existent, right? It is timeless. It is never subject to the ups and downs. So this is a common mistake, and it's a slight little adjustment I need to make for you. Right. Very, very tiny. And that is because that feeling of high is so beautiful, right? Better than any drug. There's a sense of wanting to hold on to it. Notice that graspingness, right? Well, where's that graspingness coming from, right? It's coming from a sense of being separate from it, and now I got it and I want to hold on to it, right? The truth is you. Obviously, the truth about you would have to be the truth of you, and it would have to be you. Right? The truth of something is the real thing, right? So the truth of you is the real you. Right? It's not a truth about you, right? And it isn't changeless. So there's the experience is one of the non-dual, which brings out that sense of bliss. Right? But then the mind tries to turn it into an experience that it's supposed to hold on to, a high it's supposed to hold on to. Right? And that's how the mind tries to turn the experience, the reality of yourself into an experience. Because when it does that, it's a nice concept, wrap stuff around it. Isn't this great? This is really wonderful. If we keep going, just keep trying, eventually we'll get to the point where I'm in that blissful state all the time. And this is a way in which the mind will keep you seeking for lifetimes. Because it's intoxicating, that high. Right? But it's only that intoxicating because it is in such stark contrast to the normal suffering most of us experience. And yes, the suffering does end, right? But it doesn't end in a high. It ends in peace, stillness, a lack of self-concern, a lack of self-doubt, because you simply know yourself, but not as one thing knows another. Right? You know the truth as the truth, intimately, right? Not something you know, but you know yourself. So it was the truth that experienced the effect of the truth in an emotional high. And this is the pleasure of knowing who you are. But the pleasure of knowing who you are is obviously secondary to the knowing. But remember, the truth of you is not something you know, it's what you are. This is the non-dual. The knowing of the truth and the truth become one. To our minds, the truth is something that I will gain. I will come to know. Right? So who's that I? Who is the mind presenting to you as the I? As I said in the beginning, you are not what you think you are. The thought of you is not you. The one witnessing the thought, that's you. Now, who is that? That's the truth. That's the reality. Could you be anything other than the truth? Could the truth be anything other than truth? Truth can't become falsity. Falsity can't become truth. Is this getting clear to you? The I is the truth. When you say, I know the truth, what you're saying is truth knows the truth. What can recognize truth other than truth? Can a lie recognize truth? No. Who can recognize God other than God? Who can know God other than God? Only truth can experience truth. Only truth can grasp truth. So the knowing of the truth. Now let your understanding, excuse me, sink more deeply into the place that witnessed the high and then witnessed it fading. Has that changed at all? And notice, that is absolutely silent. That's the truth. That's you. Is that good, Himunk? Is it Himunk, or Himunk? I'm not quite sure how to. Well, you haven't corrected me so far, so I'm gonna stick with Himunk. So please let me know if that's working for you. This is very important, and I don't think there's a seeker around who doesn't get stuck in that for some amount of time. I mean, let's face it, anything we do, somebody takes a drink or does drugs, we want to re-experience that pleasurable sensation. Right? When it comes from that kind of an insight, of course, we want to, we think we can reproduce it, but don't put your attention on the experience, put it on the experiencer, and you find that the experiencer is the same, whether it's a peak experience or whether it's a valley experience. I don't know why I'm getting all this stuff today. Adelson. I was wondering if you can give me your perspective on the ego. I'm an artist, so I have to maintain certain look, style to book gigs and do what I love. Book gigs, so you're a musician or an actor, and do what I love. When I'm humble, it seems I'm not it. Let me see if I can understand this. Perspective on ego. I'm an artist, so I have to maintain a certain look, style in order to book gigs and do what I love. When I'm humble, it seems I'm not it. Well, if you have to look the part, right? If you're playing in a heavy metal band, gotta look heavy metal. Duh. You don't show up in a white shirt and tie and funny looking glasses. Well, you might. It could be, but it would be a comic relief, right? It would be a joke. So it just comes with the territory. Like somebody has to wear a suit. You see all the Wall Street brokers in suits, or the lawyer or the accountant, or somebody else has his uniform on, or the apron and the white shirt for the server that you have. Just who cares, right? It's not important. If you need to do that, absolutely do that. And there are certain expectations that are had, and there's nothing wrong with that. It helps. It helps others know who you are within the context of what they need you to be, right? But you're not it, right? Look, you're not even an artist. Even thinking of yourself as an artist, right, puts you into the realm of art. The artist. That is, you're now in the container of the artist. You have to act like one. You have to think like one. You have to, right? Just follow your natural instincts, right? Which is to make art, right? To make music or dance or whatever your thing happens to be. And be very clear about how others perceive you, but how do you perceive yourself? You're not it, right? The art flows through you. That's the quality of ideas and impulses and impressions that come to you and through you. Just like, um, if you're a great basketball, LeBron James or something, it just happened, right? It's very natural, right? Is he a basketball player? In terms of an identity? No. To me, I don't know how he sees himself. I've never met the man. Um, but you can clearly distinguish. I'm nobody. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a musician. I've played music since I was 5, right? And I was a musician for a long time. I was acting the part, being everything about it, right? Till I realized what a trap it was. And oddly enough, my music got better the more I withdrew from that, the better my music got. And it actually opened it up to all sorts of different kinds of styles, different things. I just didn't have the same kind of how you say. I didn't have the same kind of boundaries around me. Suddenly, I could just do whatever I wanted to do. It was very, very liberating. Right? So the ego comes in. The ego's not a thing. First off, right? There's no entity of an ego, nor is it consistent. Right? The ego is a thought. It's simply the thought of I, the sense of identifying with certain kind of characteristics. And you'll notice that it fluctuates during the day. Right? It's there sometimes, it's not there all the time. Right? So whenever you say, I am this, the I am should be always I am full stop. But the moment the I am is I am this or that, in that moment the ego gets created. I now identify with a particular form or character or whatever. I become that, and I become identical with it, which is what the word identify means. You become identical with this idea of yourself, and in that moment, perception just closes around it, and you begin to feel like that, you begin to think like that, dress like that, act like that, right? It becomes the world for you. Now, the whole point of waking up is to recognize that you're not that. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to take form. Of course you do, right? If I go to the grocery store, I'm a shopper, right? Right? Am I a shopper? No, right? The shopper, you might say, appears and then disappears. There's no identity. Right now I'm the teacher, right? The teacher appears with the teaching, right? No teaching, no teacher. No students, no teacher, right? So the teacher appears, and when satsang is over, the teacher disappears. I am not a teacher. That is, what I am is beyond what can be put into any box whatsoever. What you are is beyond whatever any box you could ever be put into. Now that doesn't mean in a life may be completely about and devoted to doing the art. It's great. But that doesn't make you an artist, right? And I'm drawing a distinction here because in common language you'd say, yes, I'm an artist. When people ask me what I do, I'm a spiritual teacher. That's what I say, right? So it's all just a matter of your internal sense of yourself, right? So that you don't want to lock yourself into anything because you are not that. If you're with your lover or your family, or I don't know if you have kids or something, when I'm with my granddaughter, I'm not spiritual teacher. Sometimes I'm a train, right? Whatever she wants me to become, I become, right? So that freedom allows you to just move in the most elegant and most free way. Just kind of whatever needs to be happening in the moment, you let it happen. You allow it to happen. You're with it. And that includes showing up looking like a rock star if that's what the promoter needs, right? If that's what the gig needs to see, that's what you do. Right? and you just never get lost in it. As you know who you are, the truth of you, you can't get lost in any form. Any form. And that means you're free to become any form without becoming it. Can you understand that? It seems like, what? I'm going to become it without becoming it? Yeah. You're going to take on the shape, you're going to put on the costume, knowing full well that's not who you are. And that frees you to be, when you're in that costume, you're totally it. And then when the time for that is over, you take it off and you're totally not that. Is this helping you, Adelson? Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Lisa in Florida. Carrie Brogan. Morning to you, too. Miriam Galliano. Hello. Hello to you. Are you new, Miriam? I don't seem to recognize the name, but I do see a lot of names go by. Tatiana, my dear friend in Toronto. Good to see you. Daryl in Maryland. Daniel Burr. Where'd you go, Daniel? I remember as a kid, I thought if something is real, it can't change. And yet everything I was experiencing was changing. So I thought, that's weird. Well, what's not changing? Well, me, the real me, presence. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. Isn't that amazing? I bet if everyone looked back, they'd had thoughts of that kind of depth of insight, which then just gets covered over by our conditioning and our family and all that sort of thing. But kids haven't been that conditioned, and when that ability to self-ponder emerges, which is there right from the get-go, it is kind of stunning. I thought it was really amazing that I couldn't imagine not being. I don't know, it was 4 or something, 3 or 4, maybe 5. I used to trying to imagine not being. I realized I couldn't do it. Death and that sort of thing. It's like, no matter how I did it, I was always still there. I'm not. I'm here looking at, I'm not. So that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful insight. What's not changing? Me. I mean, just look very carefully. It's the only thing that isn't changing. The appearance of you changes, the body shape changes, all of that kind of stuff changes. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. But nonetheless, it's always changing. But notice, you could just feel there's something that isn't changing. Obviously that's you, because truth doesn't change. Can't. If it's real, it can't change. You said it right there. It can't. If it's real, it can't change. It would be what it is. So what is real is not an object. It's not a form. It's not a thing. It's everything, no matter how solid it seems, is nothing more than the appearance of that which is constantly changing. But the perceiver of it. Let all of your attention go towards the perceiving of the object. You notice everything changes. So put all of your attention on that which isn't changing, which is the perceiving itself. I don't even want to say perceiver, because then the mind will immediately imagine there's somebody perceiving, and you've still got two, right? So drop the somebody out and just focus on the perceiving itself, as if nothing was perceiving. It was just perceiving, and no thing doing the perceiving. It's a very deep meditation you can do, and it will take you all the way. Hey monk, on retrospection, I realized that I have had awakenings several times, especially during early childhood, but never able to successfully contain it and continue the feeling. I imagine you typed that before I had given you your answer. Yeah. The search ends. I am what I'm seeking. It's what I am, not what I experience. Hey, Katie in London. Good to have you. Donnie Dreamer. Hi, team. Perfect Gentleman says, I'm back from the UK. Welcome back. We need more perfect gentlemen. Gulsin. Hello, GP and everybody. Gulsin in Turkey. Faith. Hey, my chic and everyone. Hello, Faith. Roberto. Hi to you too, sir. I'm not ignoring your email. I'm just behind. So I never ignore emails. Jay, good old man. I watched a video from Muji on observing, and he mentioned how it isn't a practice, but we have to practice. We're practicing not to believe in thoughts and feelings. Yes. Language is such a clumsy tool when it comes to expressing eternal truth. Because how do you express the eternal, right? Only the eternal can express the eternal. But when I, a practice is usually, I'm practicing something to get a result, right? Now, of course, when we get into spirituality, even non-dual inquiry, initially, what we're doing, we're practicing to get a result. We've got some result in mind. But little by little, as our practice develops, we find the intention behind it, the expectation, what we're trying to get begins to fall away. Right? And it is no longer about what we're going to get. And so it isn't really even a practice. If I tell you just notice that there's your thoughts and there's you observing those thoughts, right? You don't have to practice that, right? You just do it, right? You can just observe that there's me and there's thoughts and I am watching those thoughts. Now, what would feel like a practice is that the habit of our minds to become absorbed into those thoughts. We would think, I've got to practice not getting absorbed and staying with the observer. But the fact of the matter is, once you're absorbed in the thoughts, there's no practice left. What do you do and do? The only thing that can happen is that at some point that falls away, and there's the sense that, oh, that's right, I got distracted, right? But again, that's a seeing, isn't it? It's not a practice. Because you can't practice if you don't think of it, right? Right? So ultimately, you begin to see that you're not practicing anything. You are simply seeing. And the seeing itself is becoming so refined and so pure, right, that it just you begin to be aware that this seeing has been going on the entire time. Even when you were distracted, you were seeing the distraction. You didn't, and then later on, there was the thought or the insight that saw that it was a distraction, which kind of shifted the consciousness. But even when you were in the middle of the distraction, completely unaware that you were distracted, you were still observing it, weren't you? So this isn't about getting to the place where I'm perfectly poised all the time. Thank God we don't have to do that. We simply realize it's always there. If I'm distracted, if I'm completely out to lunch, right? Are you not aware of it, right? What's happening is the sense of I and the sense of conscious presence is moving more and more to that, space, recognizing that which is always here, which is the truth, which is the real you, right? And because of that, everything else just falls away till you find yourself established there. But even that's a misnomer, isn't it? You find the your everyday human consciousness and thoughts and stuff, they get established there. You've never been anywhere else. So we have to use the word like you're practicing to become established as the observer, right? But it's a misnomer, isn't it? It really is not what's actually happening. There's a recognition that is emerging, right? And it keeps emerging because seeing that it's true automatically empowers it, right? So every time you see that it's true, right, this is what I am, it gets more and more. The seeing can't get any more seeing, can it? Truth can't get any more true, right? It's not like, there's I'm true and I'm even more true. It's truth or false, right? So in that sense, we're not really practicing anything. We are really, what we're doing is we're bringing thought, emotion, and sensation in line with the truth that we are. And mainly mind, because it so easily flits around and gets distracted. So you could say we're practicing not to believe in thoughts and feelings. You could very well say that, right? And depending on who I'm talking to, what level they are, I may very well put it in those kinds of terms. Just practice coming back to noticing that you're observing the thoughts. But strictly speaking, that's not what's happening. You're simply seeing. You're recognizing that which has always been. And that's not a practice. That's an insight. That's just a direct seeing. You're seeing what's always been, right? And even that's the seeing, isn't it? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful insight. And thank you for that, because it allowed me to really articulate a very subtle point. And it really is a very fine point. Right? So, very good, Jay. Roberto, I've seen all my fears in front of me, GP. Thank you. Beautiful. Beautiful. They're not you. They are not you. Okay. No matter what the sensation running through your body is, it's not you. Miriam says, very interesting. Well, thank you. Himank, yes, that pronunciation is correct. Thank you for clearing that up. It has indeed been sinking me into me every day. I think I just need validation in knowing that everything around me is just an extension of myself. Everything is I, including the perception of the universe and any being out there, not separate from myself. Yes. And the more you know who you are, then the easier it is. The more you know, the inward path goes first, right? To know who you are, right? And along the way, you get these insights that, well, then if I have no form and I'm infinite, well then all of this is in me. And the more you know who you are, the more real that becomes. Right? And it also assists the other way. The very first insight I ever had was when I was 17, and I realized I could not figure out whether or not what I was experienced actually existed independently of me. It just the thought came up. What if none of us is actually out there? And I pondered it deeply, and I realized I could not prove conclusively that there was an external universe, and I was here perceiving it. Shook me up. Yeah, shook things up a little bit, and it kind of drew me in to, well, how do you actually come to know anything? But the more you look at it, the more you see that it's all in your perception, the more it comes back to you. Right? But the most important thing is, of course, the perception we have of ourselves, right? Which has been drawn from the idea that you are just one of many objects out there. Right? Right? So the object that is you is also being perceived from this place of the one. And that's there, the sense of being a personal being falls away. And the absolute knowing of yourself as the being itself, is realized. Very good. Very good, Himok. David and Elaine. In the light of the American elections, dancing in the street, we hope that wisdom will prevail and usher in a more gentle, more respectful, and less divisive political, social environment. It's what is manifesting, but it's difficult not to get caught up in the drama of it all, and are aware of the emotional and psychological triggers that have been pushed as a result. Thanks, GP. Oh, beautiful. Yes. Well, here's what happens. The more we're awake to our true being, the more influential that is going to be on human affairs. It's really pretty simple. Right? Human affairs are a manifestation or a reflection of our deepest value systems. Right? The soon-to-be former president represented a particular set of values. And as reprehensible as those values would seem to most of us, there's an enormous number of people who shared them. Right? That's how he got to where he was. All systems are like that. Right? The economic system, capitalism, is a value system based on private ownership and the exploitation, the ownership of everything for purposes of profit. Right? It's a system. It's a value system. And from that perspective, everything draws its value from my ownership of it and what it is worth to me or to somebody else for me to profit from it. It's a value system. Right? As is all the economic systems in the world. They are. Everything rests on this essential perception of ourselves, and that perception of ourselves is what determines the value of everything else. The ego puts itself here. I'm of this class, therefore I am this, and then it creates itself in reference to that which is above me and that which is below me. This is the way the whole ego. When the ego is gone, there is no class. There is no above or below. There is 100% equality. And that's what we're all desiring, right? Because the divide and conquer strategy has been around for a long time. The current president, soon to be ex-president, played that card all the time, but it's been played all the time forever. It's always been us against them, taking sides, and the powers that be, the real political powers and economic powers in the world, they know they play that game. They control the media. That's how they do it. So it comes back to here. It comes back to us. To not be fooled, to not be frightened, to eradicate all divisiveness within ourselves. That is the inner conflict between who we really are and who we think we are, and to find the truth. Because what has more value than the truth? The absolute value of anything is the truth of it. Right? We look at values in the world and it's all relative value. Right? If I have a particularly a skill that's in high demand, right, then I have value. Right? If I don't, then I'm not. Right? But what does that mean about my value? Right? Our world isn't capable of assessing absolute value, infinite value, inherent value. Right? It's got to be comparison, right? And comparison is ego, period. Right? The function of comparing is the ego. Every comparing thought you have is the ego. It's trying to define itself in terms of something else. Non-duality just throws that out, turns it around. You don't define yourself in terms of anything else. If you do, you limit yourself. You discover the self that is incomparable. It's one without a second. What do you compare the infinite to? Another infinite? Thank you for that, David Elaine. There are a lot of people here in the U.S. breathing a big sigh of relief. Although things aren't going to change that substantially. But anyway, Jay, he's serving up a sloka for us. Chapter 3, verse 8, perform your obligatory actions. It is always better to do something rather than not to, at least for the survival of your body. Do what you've committed to do, and be really wise about what you commit to. Obviously, we need to take care of our bodies. We need to eat. We should eat well, exercise, and that sort of thing. And then you forget about it. Once you've done that, forget about it. It's about free. Life is not about obligation or meeting responsibilities, or the survival of the body even. It's about freedom. So even the survival, at some point, even the concern as to whether the body survives or not falls away. The body's going to fall away anyway. You might as well let your concern for it go. Now that doesn't mean neglect it or purposely starve it or anything like that. Buddha discovered that didn't work. That didn't lead anywhere. So, do what you need to do and realize that at some point you're just going to completely forget about it. It does not matter whether the body lives or not, because it's not really even alive, and you can't die. The body's just a temporary functioning. It's not sentient. It's not self-aware. Self-awareness is the consciousness that is animating the body. And that will be there whether the body's there or not. Just like it's been there. Well, I'm going on body number 10. Yeah, a couple more years. I'm on body number 9. Right? The complete turnover of cells and everything in the body. Right? So why in the world would I be concerned about survival? I've already been through 9 of them. I may have a couple more before I trade it in. Right? The car's getting old, right? It's showing wear. Russell, greetings from Durban. Hello, Russell. Sultan Tio. Yes, Millie, I agree. And I also think the constant drama the last 4 years, is draining. It's hard to feel peaceful when there's so much chaos around you. It's challenging. That's absolutely true. I mean, it has been like a bad dream. It's been so strange and surreal and the like. It has been an emotional drain. Obviously, as people in the country, but for the whole world, just all of a sudden, there's this loose cannon, right, with nuclear weapons. What in the world's going to happen? So I can see the stress it's caused everywhere. Right? It's like, what a legacy. But I want to point something out. I say it's hard to feel peaceful when there's so much chaos constantly going around you. If you're not feeling peaceful when there's chaos going on around you, it's not because the chaos is keeping you from being peaceful. It's because you believe that you can't feel peace when there's chaos around you. It's the belief that's affecting it, not the circumstance. It is never the circumstance. Even saying it's challenging gives it a power that it doesn't inherently have. Nothing has power unless you give it to it. So conclude that peace is your nature. It is what you are. Therefore, it's never hard to know peace. And it's never hard to experience the fruit of that peace. Because peace can't be experienced, right? Anymore you can experience silence. It's the absence of all activity. It's pure stillness. So you don't experience stillness. Stillness is what you are that experiences everything else. It's the empty background. You know, if you're reading the chat, right, you're aware of the words and the letters. We forget about the white background that makes it possible for us to experience the words and the letters. Yet the white background remains completely unchanged, right? So stop saying that to yourself. Basically, it's hard to feel peaceful when there's so much chaos going around. It's not true. Peace is your nature, therefore your access to it as a feeling is there forever, always. And only our minds believing that some condition has to exist in order to be and feel peaceful, right, creates the very circumstances and inner experience that would make it seem as if that was true. That's how perception works. It creates an experience of something based on what the leading belief is. The experience creator has no judgment. It just creates it. True or false, it does not have the power of discrimination. Only you do. And that's what we're invoking here, the power of discrimination. It isn't the chaos that robs you of your peace. It's your belief that it does that robs you. Really be clear about that. Okay? Now that doesn't dismiss the fact that, yeah, it has been chaotic. It has been completely unpredictable. It has been divisive and really insane. That's what it's been. Right? The world was insane enough before that. But don't give that any power over you. Right? Because you are peace. That is your nature. And so don't let the mind tell you that something can rob you of that. It's simply not true. Janet, yeah, thanks GP for the train comment. You and your grandfather role. I got my first laugh out loud of the day. Well, since I've been living in New Mexico, and we're farther apart, several times a week I'll get a FaceTime. It's usually about the same time. Mom and Dad are cooking dinner, so she's calling Baba. And now we play hide and go seek. Okay, you count, Baba. I'm going to hide in the closet. So, but it is news. I have signed the lease on an apartment. First time in 5 years, I've just gotten my own place in downtown Seattle. 3 free months. First 3 months free. And I will have fiber optic internet. So my internet worries will be a thing of the past. I'll actually even be able to broadcast in 1080p. So how about that? So, anyway, so thanks, Janet. Yeah, it's fun. You just forget everything. Yeah, when I'm with her, I forget everything. I just become her. I become a kid. We play. We make fun of stuff. It's great. We sing. Go, no, Baba, this way. Oh, lovely. It's a great experience. Shasha. Hi, G. I'm from Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, there are so many monks are claiming to be enlightened. The luxury they enjoy is crazy. Can Buddhas behave like that? Are they misleading people? Well, that certainly is possible. Obviously, I'd have to know them in particular to be able to discern that. It's odd for monks to be indulging in great luxuries. I mean, Muji he has a lot of property. He's got the ashram and all sorts of stuff there. Um, his own facility, the place where he lives, is very humble. It's very small. It's not big at all. Um, and the accommodations for other people and like are are very are very small as well. So I look, what I look to is to see is there a dependency on these things? um, is there a need? Is there a need from them? Does the life that they are living express a depth of wisdom and understanding and a lack of attachment to material things, right? Or does it look like spiritual materialism, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with luxuries, right? But I find that the deeper I go, the less I need. I mean, literally for the last 5 years, everything I've owned is fit in a car. I mean, I'm getting this new apartment. I have no furniture. I've actually been shopping for a couch and dishes and pots and pans because I don't have any of it, right? Have I felt like I've been missing something? No, absolutely not, right? And it'd be very nice. It's kind of fun. Oh, I like that. I don't like that. Putting it all together and getting ideas and that sort of stuff. It's a fun little thing to do. But is there a need for it? Is there dependency? Do I see things that are luxurious? Do I lust after them? No. Things come, things go, right? So I can't say whether they are or not. Buddhas don't behave like that. No, they don't collect a lot of luxury around them. They're very, very humble, very simple, because they're totally satisfied. What do they need? Right? So a lot of people will claim to be enlightened. They will even be able to speak like it. Many will even think they are. Right? If they think they are, it's a problem. Never think you are. Believe me, when you are, you'll know it. Yeah, right? But never. Am I enlightened? Oh, just put all that aside. False prophets and false gurus have been around forever. The most important thing, Shasha, is to just your heart. Do you feel drawn to them at all? Right? Remember, it's not your job to expose them, right? Oh, he's a fake, right? It's not your job to do that. That all happens by itself. The truth is always revealed. Christ said it would be, it would be for a time hidden, but then it'd be shouted from the rooftops, right? You can't hide, you can't hide the truth forever, right? So if there's something inside you that says something's not right here, that's your sense of truth, right? Stick with it. That's the voice of truth. Stay with it. It will lead you wherever you need to go. And those that are misleading people, well, what I hope for most is that they wake up. Right? There's no law here that you have to be a morally righteous in order to wake up. I can't remember the name now, but there's one Hindu sage, a famous sage, fully enlightened being, who woke up. He was an assassin. He killed people for a living, and he woke up. So there's no rules here, right? So even somebody who's cruelly misleading, right, and exploiting people for money, they can wake up. Now, if they do, that behavior will no longer happen, right? That will just be dropped. You can't sustain it. Truth would just wipe it off the face of the earth. So I hope that helps you. Most important, trust your own sense. Trust that voice inside of you. And if something doesn't feel right, something doesn't look right, it's like enlightened and this way of living, they don't match. Say, okay, maybe it is and I don't get it, but it's not for me. I'm going elsewhere. And then just keep all your attention on that inner voice, that truth. Beautiful, beautiful. Sarah. Hi, David and Ali. One can only hope for less crazy. It'd be difficult to have more. I thought that year after year. Okay, I can't get any crazier than this. And then it did. Um, Thanks for your kind thoughts and wishes. It's folks like you and the others here that will get us through this. Yes, indeed. Hey, Shasha, says Sarah Sands. They're just like our pastors in this prosperity God. Oh God, that's so true. That's so true. Um, yes, Sasha. Yeah. We have all sorts of people who are preaching the gospel of wealth. That for some reason Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross so you could be rich. There you go. I don't know how they managed to do that, but a really interesting twist. So there are false prophets everywhere. Look, even the ones who believe that God still hates us, and he's so repulsed by us that he had to sacrifice his son, who's actually him, right? Sacrifice himself because only he was worthy to pay the debt that he himself imposed. I mean, if you look at it, the whole thing is insane. I mean, it's insane from beginning to end. But these guys promote the hell out of it. They just over and over and over again. And I think some of them are sincere. I think some of them are so lost in their ego. I mean, I heard one. This guy's worth $760 million, so almost a billionaire, and he's a TV preacher, right? And I actually heard him say to another one, the guy who's the second wealthiest, a TV preacher, God wants me to have a second private jet. Really, right? Now these guys are very strange because they're not preaching prosperity. There are some that's their thing. They preach, it's a prosperity gospel. But you can see how they can become so lost. They just cannot see the ego in it. They just can't see it. And their life bears no resemblance to the life of Christ, who sought nothing, had very little, right? Wrote nothing, organized nothing, promoted nothing. He was just his genuine self. And 2,000 years later, we're still talking about him. 2,600 years later, we're still talking about the Buddha. What was the impact? The true, absolute, infinite value. Right? The real value. Thank you, Sarah. Amen to that. Also to what Sultan Tio said, Satsang is our place of refuge where we can calmly look at crazy. Right. I can sit right here in the middle of absolute peace and look at crazy. And maybe more importantly, be able to recognize crazy as crazy. Because then you're not crazy. It's when you don't recognize crazy, when crazy seems sane, is when you're crazy. That's this power. And what is it that can recognize the difference between sanity and crazy? That's the voice of truth inside of you. I mean, that's it. Not inside of you. It is you, right? That's the true you. That's the truth recognizing itself. Clearly discerning between that which is true and that which isn't, right? Jay said, more like noticing it more often. I guess that's the previous comment. Sarah, dear G, thank you for your generosity and love. I have a question. Every morning I do meditation, chanting, reading, and yoga. However, I get answers and solutions to problems and pages of texts. Should I stop my morning spiritual work and start writing? When I do, I get a lot of work done. That's very interesting. Well, what's most important to you? Right? And this isn't a statement. This isn't a leading, right? Like I know the answer. I don't. What is most important to you? Right? What's the objective? What are you after in your morning meditations, chanting, reading, and yoga? Right? Is it to be inspired? If it's to be inspired, then when the inspiration starts to flow, do it. Right? There's nothing. Don't regiment a practice. I've got to do this practice, right? Right? If you have to do that, eventually the discipline will wear out. As you're seeing, something draws you now to the creative flow. And of course, you're in a business of creative flow, right? As a teacher and a writer and that sort of thing. So you don't turn it into something sacrosanct, right? I do meditations. I call them meditations, right? They don't resemble meditations that most people do. It's actually just a quiet inquiry. It's just a different way, a more kind of feminine or passive way of bringing somebody into the inner inquiry, right? Now, what's the objective of that? To know yourself. That's it. Right? That's the only purpose of it. It's the only reason I do it. It's the only reason I teach it. And I invite people to do that for that reason only. Right? Now, if there's a byproduct of insight or creativity or a flow of thoughts, that's great. Right? But that's not the primary purpose. Right? Now, if you're meditating in order to keep up that creative flow, well, then that is the purpose. It now has fulfilled itself, so do it. Right? Pick it up and say thank you. Right? And go for it. Right? So just be really clear as to what it's for. But always have some time of the day, right? Even for 10, 20 minutes, where the practice or the meditation is only to know the truth. Nothing else. The truth for truth's sake. Not for any of the fruits that truth brings, right? We don't seek God for heaven, right? If we're seeking God in order to get heaven, that's a business deal, right? We seek God because He's God. We seek the truth because it is the truth, right? So just be really clear, and it's great. If that happens in the morning, you get everything you need, you got the answers, you got pages, everything you need, do it. But take some time of the day to be so sacred that it is purely to commune with reality. Beautiful. It used to happen to me a lot when I'd be meditating. As you get into that space, thoughts subside and boom, that creative juice is open. All of a sudden I find myself, and after a while I said, it's not really that important. If that thought is really that important, it'll come back, right? I said, what's really important to me? What's the most important thing to me right now? Truth. But come to that. Don't. I'm not your. I'm not your 7th grade teacher. Jay, yes, more like noticing what's true. Yeah, that's in reference back to the question about practice. Yeah. Ursula, Madeira Island is online. Very good. Johanna. IGP, nice to be here today. It occurred to me today that the peace that surpasses all understanding is pretty mundane, but without the negative commentary. Am I on the right track here? Thanks. Yeah. Mundane as in ordinary. As in, so what else is new, right? For a lot of people, mundane is, boring. Yes, mundane without the negative commentary, right? Mundane, oh God, that again. Oh, same old thing. Oh, it's a napkin. Got to take a drink of water. Right? But it is just this presence, absolutely consistent, right? Which is why the mind can't perceive it, because there's nothing there, right? It is, the only thing there is you. It's reality. And that passes all understanding. It can't be understood. It can't be conceptualized. It can't be imagined even. So it's mundane, ordinary. Just every day. Of course, wouldn't you want it to be that? So it would be this utter stillness that would be imperceivable and inconceivable as well. Right? So you're definitely on the right track, Joanna. Yeah, definitely. Just sink into that peace. And even the words mundane they'll fall away as well. Because that peace is you. It is your being. It is not something you attain or realize or anything like that. It is not separate from you. This is the true non-dual insight. It is you. You are peace. And of course that peace then would naturally just, the perfume of it would exude everywhere. And you'll find it isn't mundane at all, right? Because it is, in addition to be absolutely still, it is the source and creator of the entire universe. So you're definitely on the right track. Definitely. It's a beautiful insight. Wonderful. Sultan Tio, how do I both live in the now and be motivated to do necessary but distasteful tasks like work or do my taxes? If I were truly living in the now, I would not want to deal with any of that ever. No, truly in the now, you realize you don't have to. It happens by itself. The sense of being a doer is there. So first off, how do you live in the now? Right now, try to not be in the now. Let's get out of the now. Everybody get out of the now, okay? How you doing so far? That thought, I want to be in the now, right? Well, where else would you be? Where else are you, right? So right now is not a state of mind, right? It is not a sense of everything is cool, right? It's not a sense of this is tasteful, this is distasteful, this is fun, this is boring, right? That's all of that passes through the now, arises and subsides in the now, right? So this is a great opportunity for you to look at the presence or absence of motivation, right? The urge, the need to do something, right? Is that something that is always here, or is it comes and goes? If it comes and goes, it's not the truth. It's just temporary. It's just something that's happening, right? Now, who is it that needs to be motivated to do something necessary? Who is it that decided that this is distasteful, right? Did God say, oh, this really sucks. I hate this. Again, another galaxy. I got to make another galaxy. Right? You have to become the person, right? The finite sense of self to take a position to say, I like this, I don't like that. Now, I'm not saying you have to like doing your taxes, but I am saying that without that burden of the person, they simply become effortless. They become neutral. Right? And I found in my experience that as I've done that, those mundane tasks fall away. Somebody else does it for me. Right? There are stuff that I have to do. Right? It's fine, I do it. But a lot of stuff I don't. Taxes, I don't do my taxes anymore. I have a bookkeeper. She keeps track of everything. Right? And after the first of the year, she tells me what everything is. I say, thank you very much. Right? If something comes up during the year that I really need to know about, she tells me. So I let go of it. Right? There's a lot of things about this business I'd rather not do. And at some point I might not have to. The whole technology thing, I'm really done with that. I don't want to do that. But right now, where I am, I've got to do it. So I do it. Okay? Now, the moment I say, all right, got to do it, and I stop resisting it, it's distasteful, and that very moment, all the suffering's gone from it. And it usually happens very quickly. It just kind of does its thing, and it's gone. But I'm no longer creating a resistance to it. So when I say, oh, it's really distasteful, my evaluation of it is distasteful, causes me the suffering. Now I don't want to do it, and now I've done this. I've created that. The task didn't come to you and say, I'm a really distasteful task, and you got to do me. It didn't say that. It was just completely neutral, popped up, this needs to happen. Now, it's up to you to decide how you're going to interpret that, and how you interpret that will determine your experience of it. That will determine whether you suffer over it or not. And remember, resistance to anything is the ego. Resistance is the name for the function, ego is the name for the function of resistance. It's not a thing resisting. It is simply the habit energy of resisting, taking a position and resisting, right? That's the ego. The ego gets created in that moment. It says, I don't like that. Well, who's that I? Look at it very carefully. Who's that I? Now, has anybody so far been able to get out of the now? Okay, I'm assuming not. I'm assuming not. So therefore, we have to conclude that that's where we always are. I'm always in the now. I'm not moving through time. I'm still, and events are going past me, and I've used the word time to describe it, but there is no time. Time doesn't exist separate from the flow of events. Now is where I am. Now, in the now, right now, don't compare right now to anything else. Right? The now, just as it is. No thought of, oh, it was better yesterday, or it's going to be better tomorrow. Right? No comparison. Right? The mind wants to always jump to the past, to the future, but that's the mind. It doesn't take you out of the now. It's always thinking something other than the now. So put all those comparisons aside and just right here, right now, without comparing this moment to any other moment ever, is there anything wrong? Is there anything missing? Is it not perfect? How else could it be? Self-defined, self-existent. Truth and the now are synonyms. The now and the self are synonyms. So whatever appears in this moment, simply don't compare it to anything else. A task comes, don't compare it to anything else. Drop all the labels and it will become absolutely neutral. And you will remain at peace. And you'll find that things, they pretty much do themselves. that it really isn't you doing anything. It is simply life happening, and you are the witness of the happening, not the doer of it. There is no doer of it. Does that help, Sultan Tio? Sarah says, congrats on the apartment. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm so excited to have really good internet. Penny, glad to hear you're moving to Seattle, which is closer to us on the West Coast. More retreat at KECC, perhaps? That's the Krishnamurti Education Center in Canada. Well, I'm going to be doing another, I'm actually going to be doing an online retreat in December, 4th, 5th, and 6th. I'll be telling everybody about it. And then I'm going to be doing another one through Krishnamurti Center in Canada in March, the end of March. But it's going to have to be online, right? Obviously, we're not able to open up things for live as of yet, right? I don't want to sit, we don't want to sit in a room with a bunch of people, at least 6 feet apart, all wearing masks, right? Not much of an event. So, yeah, I'm glad to be going back to Seattle. I'll be only about 20 or 30 minutes from my granddaughter too, which would be nice. Janet says, good luck on your new place. Thank you so much. Katie, as personality contributes to the level of suffering we experience, does it also determine how one releases conditioning and reaches enlightenment? Well, the identification with the temporary characteristics of this body-mind, right, is well, okay, let me take a step back. The conditioning is simply the way this particular form, the nervous system, the body-mind, has adapted itself to the environment in which it found itself. Right? So you're born a girl in England, or I think you were in England, right? Into a particular family, and they had particular cultural ideas, particular moral, religion, all that kind of stuff, right? So this undifferentiated consciousness, this absolutely unformed thing, right, which could have been anything, simply takes the form, right, adapts itself to that particular environment. That's conditioning. I mean, that same kid put in a different would adapt to that and would become that, right? Right. So there's nothing special about the conditioning. Now, what happens later on is as a sense of identity emerges, right? It identifies with the conditioning, right? It doesn't recognize the condition is completely arbitrary, right? It was just an adaptation to the environment. So it's not who you actually are. It is simply the form it took in order to survive, right? So now, the awakening is when you begin to realize the conditioning is not who I am. I have simply identified myself with that, taken on all those thought forms and emotions and the like, right? Thinking that those were what I actually was. And now I realize that they're not. And the process of awakening it can be sudden, or it can be a very gradual withdrawing to see conditioning as conditioning. Now, the conditioning is what you would call the personality, right? Certain characteristics and certain predilections and certain preferences and all that sort of stuff. But it's all been culturally determined, right? Now, some of it is very genuine, because every form has its own uniqueness, right? I mean, it's not. We're not completely just products of conditioning. The nervous system is, the body-mind is, but there's also this other special secret sauce of individuality. But that is also not completely who you are. That's simply that is simply what emerges as that which is expressing itself through this particular form. So The conditioning itself, not a problem, right? The personality itself, not a problem. So what contributes, it creates the suffering, is when I identify myself with, I make myself identical to the conditioning. I think I am the conditioning. I now am confined to the conditioning, but because I'm not really the conditioning, that sense of inside of me that something's wrong, something's missing, that discontent, that's the suffering we experience. And the conditioning, that personality tries to get something and finds it doesn't have the resources to get it. We suffer, right? But why are we absent so much of the inner resources? Because we've identified with being in the container. So it is the disidentification which releases the conditioning, right? It will change the conditioning after a while, but at first it just who cares, right? So this is what it's doing, no big deal. And that's the road to enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply the full realization that I am pure consciousness, infinite and unbounded. And in fact, there's never even been anybody. There is no condition. There's no world. There's nothing but me. You have to go all that. You don't have to go that whole distance all at once, right? Take your time, right? But so it's just a fine point. Personality contributes to the level of suffering. The identification with conditioning, which is the person, is what creates the suffering, right? Because it cuts you off from who you really are and locks you into a world infinitesimally smaller than what you are really. So, does it also determine how one releases conditioning and reaches enlightenment? No, it doesn't determine that at all, right? This is just the form. That which begins to awaken you to the fact that you are not your conditioning isn't coming from the conditioning, right? It's coming from the truth, which is still there, right? The sense of being a finite self contained in that container, right? That doesn't wake up. The guy in the dream doesn't wake up. That does not self-realize, right? Something outside of that realizes that I'm looking at the conditioning. So I can't be my condition. I'm looking at my thoughts. And now I can see how my thoughts have been conditioned. And I can see how I had for so long accepted them as my own. But the very act of seeing the thoughts as just conditioned patterns can't possibly come from the thought, can it? It's got to come from the truth. It's got to come from who you really are. Right? So it isn't going to determine the way that happens. But truth is so infinitely flexible that it will appear to you in a way that can be recognizable even with your identification with the false self. It is so gentle, so loving, so kind. It will take whatever form it needs to in order to shift the perception enough to start calling you back home. Does that answer it for you, Katie? I think I covered all the different aspects of that. Beautiful question. Beautiful question. Jay. Gee, the point, that video from Muji was to recognize yourself when you get up in the morning like a meditation. Do you disengage from external activities time to time to turn attention on yourself? Do you mean me personally? Or do you mean the you in general? Well, it's actually the same answer. The answer is yes, I do. Yeah, absolutely. First off, because it's just so enjoyable. It's like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home for lunch. Right? But at the same time, there's also this kind of underlying awareness of it always being there, even with the external activities. And of course, external activities, they're activities that oftentimes they really will require a lot of your attention. Right? And so if they're getting all your attention, it's very focused work. that attention, of course, is going to create feelings and stuff in the body, perfectly natural, kind of the natural reaction to it. And it's very important to just kind of withdraw from all of that and go back to yourself. So, yeah, I love to. I'll be just working on something. I'll just stop for a second and just enjoy myself. Just the sheer miracle and mystery of being. And it's enormously pleasurable. I highly recommend it. Nazarene, I've got to the point that if I don't meditate or be still, I feel out of balance. I don't do it to feel good per se, but is it possible I become dependent on it? Thank you. Oh, no, Nazarene, it's not, no. There's some people I might say yes, but I can sense that you're not doing it as an escape. What I think you're discovering is that the meditation reconnects you with who you are. You feel balanced, of course, right? Because the truth is always balanced, right? But then if you don't do it, the old habit patterns assert themselves more strongly, and you feel what it's like to be the separate self. Simple as that, right? So it's not like you're doing something wrong, like you're using it as a crutch. I'm not sensing that. If I did, I'd tell you, right? But I'm not sensing it. You're not doing it to feel good. But while you're doing these meditations, remember, you've spent lifetimes being somebody you're not, right? This lifetime is one of many, right? And you are just as much them when you were them as you are you now, right? And so this kind of meditation that we're doing, of bringing your attention to this place of the pure witness, right? There's a lot of momentum trying to drag attention back, right? Don't worry about it in the slightest. When you feel that sense of I'm feeling out of balance, go, oh, stop. Come back. Come back to that you are the observer of the feeling of being out of balance. Very simply, you could just say, this feeling of being out of balance, to whom is that appearing? And immediately the attention goes back to you. Right? So don't think that you're mismeditating, I'm feeling out of balance. Don't set up a causal reaction like that, a relationship like that, because it's not really true. Right? The mind would love to say, if you don't meditate, you're going to feel out of balance. And then the mind will turn meditation into a discipline and a responsibility, and then you'll hate it and you won't want to do it. And well, you shouldn't. Right? So, and the mind doesn't want you to meditate on that. It wants to keep you engaged in its world, right? But just notice that feeling of being out of balance is just a feeling. You aren't actually out of balance. Right? The truth is you can't be. How can truth be out of balance? It can't. So the truth of you cannot be out of balance. Right? So that is simply attention going back into all the stuff going on into the mind, inevitably is going to feel the instability of the mind. But it's just a feeling. Oh, okay. And you can actually even use it. I feel out of balance. Okay, where's my attention going? Now, if in that moment you just immediately turn your attention back to that which is aware of being out of balance, you're meditating. You're back in meditation. Boom. 2 seconds. Done. Right? And then pull it out again, pull it back in. And so meditation isn't, in the morning, or, it doesn't have to be formal. Right? Every time your attention withdraws from the external and turns inward, you have entered into meditation. So you're not becoming dependent on it. Well, in a sense, why would you not want to be, right? I'm totally dependent on that meditation, because it's transforming your life. Damn straight I'm dependent on it. But I'm not using it as an escape. That's the difference. Right? Beautiful, 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 Nazareth. Shasha. Thanks, G. No, I don't get attached to them, like you said. I trust my instincts. Good. Deep down, I know it's not something to maintain, but just to enjoy every moment. Yeah. And be very grateful for your discerning eye. Because you can sense, the only reason you asked me the question is because you discerned something wasn't quite right about them. Right? And you just wanted to make sure it wasn't, you were just superficially judging them because they had luxury items. Just, you can feel that it's not that, because it would have a different feeling if there was a truly spiritual relationship between them and these luxury possessions that they have, or amount of money they're getting in donations and like. If there was truly a spiritual energy there, you'd feel it. Right? You wouldn't even suspect. You would say, "Yeah, it makes perfect sense." The question wouldn't even enter your mind. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Miriam, how are you doing, GP? I hope you are blessed with God's love and living in heaven in your place. Oh, thank you so much. I am blessed with God's love. As are you. As are we all. Even those we don't like. Even those who have caused the world a lot of unnecessary conflict and pain, they too are bathed in God's light. Love it just loves, right? The sun just shines. The sun shines on the evil and the good, right? Love just loves, period. It is unconditional. It has no prerequisites. It doesn't say, do this first and then I'll love you. It doesn't. Love can't do that. And God is love. Love is not an attribute of God. God is not somebody who loves. God is love itself. If I am loving, then I am one with God. Simple as that. So simple. Thank you, Miriam. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Wonderful sentiment. David and Elaine, beautiful words as usual, GP. Many thanks. Good luck and a smooth transition back to Seattle. Yes, back to Seattle. Where we go? There we go. Daryl, do you make any distinction between male and female energy, or all is just energy manifesting? In its essence, the self, which is the infinite intelligence, right, of which energy is just a manifestation, is neither male nor female. It has no gender. It is beyond all opposites, right? But in order for there to be manifestation, it must manifest in opposites. It must create contrast. Therefore, the very same energy, right, that makes my hand makes this cup of water, which I'm going to take a drink of, and the water inside. Different forms of the same essence. Right? So they all are expressing the same essential beingness, but it's kind of like light passing through a prism, right? The light is invisible, it can't be seen. It's the potential for all color, right? And all form. Right? When it passes through a prism, you see the illusion, really, of light broken up into, and you see different aspects of it, right? So you're seeing different aspects of the formless being, but in order for that to be seen, you must see it must pass through the prism, and then you get the male and female energies, and they're clearly identifiable as such, and you can see that it's so fundamental, right? It's fundamental to everything, right? Male and female created he them, created it them. Really, it should be, or created she them, right? But yeah, so it's both, right? And this is the beauty of non-duality. It's not, it's all just energy, right? and which gets rid of male and female and all that. That's the Neo-Advaita that I don't recommend. Right? True non-duality is it's both. Right? So it is simultaneously the manifestation of the whole, and it is the female, or it is the male, or it is the child, or it is the adult. They're all different aspects of exactly the same thing, but you see the nature of that which is being manifested in the manifestation. The nature of music is revealed in the song, and it couldn't be revealed any other way. Take away all the songs, music would still be there, right? Completely unexpressed, unknown. It would be absolute music, right? But the nature of music is to break itself into songs, right? Break into song, right? Without entering in or becoming it, right? I mean, the artist completely express themselves in their work, right? But they don't enter into their work and get caught there. It's one aspect of it. One, so it displays the essential nature of the artist, right? You can look at Mozart or Picasso, and you can look at their work, and you can see them, even though the work changes constantly, you can see them through the whole thing. Now, this is a hint, right? What we're seeing in everything, including Mozart and Picasso, is an aspect of the one, of beingness itself. Right? And that's the only way it is known to itself. So it's both. I see the divine reflected in the human. I can't distinguish. I can't make the distinction. They are not two. Right? The Word made flesh, God appearing as man, God as man. Right? You can't separate. You can't separate them. We do for the purposes of explanation, right? But the reality is they are one. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. This is the place. The mind cannot go there. It can reduce everything to essence and completely get rid of everything else, or it can see everything as just an individual being, right, interacting with another individual being. Right? Both are wrong, and both are right. It's this. It's the Holy Spirit, right? God and man. Where does one begin and the other end? Doesn't. The line of demarcation is the great illusion. Thank you for that, Daryl. I hope that answered it for you. Jay, I'm sitting here listening to Satsang, and there's all kinds of distractions happening, internally and externally. Something happens externally, and my mind is reacting to those external happenings. Yes, that's what it does. That's its nature. One thing that crossed my mind was how my 2-year-old came in here and wants me to read his book, and my wife was in here too, and they were in here for a little bit. My mind is saying I'm being distracted, but I'm seeing that it's doing that and wanting me to take action. But the pure recognition of it and taking a step back from that point shows me the futility of the mind's activity. Beautiful. Yes. Only the mind gets distracted. You never get distracted. You're actually witnessing the distraction. And the mind wants to turn it into a story and go, see, you're distracted. Satsang's more important. And they're just distracting me. No, they're not. They're just being them. All of that's the mind creating the scenario that is totally whacked. You say, I'm not distracted. Yes, you can't be. I'm trying to point you guys all to what cannot be distracted, because even the distraction is being seen. Even when there's no awareness of being distracted, and all distracted means is, I intended my intention to go here, it's now over here, and I haven't recognized that it isn't here yet, still, right? That it's gone here. And then eventually I went, oh, wait a minute. I wanted it to be here and now it's here, right? And now I recognize that. And then I say, I was distracted. No, the mind was. It was looking here and then went over here, which is what minds do, right? Squirrel, right? I mean, it's what they do. And then suddenly, all of a sudden you go, oh, I did want it to be here, and it went over here, and I didn't realize that, and it did it without asking me, and now I recognize that. Now, were you not completely aware of absolutely all of that the entire time? That awareness is never distracted. How can it be? It's awareness. It's what it is. You can't distract it. Soltantillo. Are you perfect in the now? Or are you in pain or actively in the middle of an unpleasant interaction? Are you perfect in the now? If you are in pain, yes. In the middle of an unpleasant interaction, yes. Where else would you be? Where else could the pain or an unpleasant action take place? It has to be in the now. Right? Which means that what's taking place, look, pain is a sensation you're experiencing. If there's no resistance to the pain, right, it means there's no story, you will not suffer. It will simply be an experience you're having. And in an unpleasant interaction, right, you have to take a position. I don't want this action to happen, or this interaction. This interaction is happening. It is unpleasant. I made it unpleasant. There's no such thing as an event that has inherent meaning in it. Can you see that? Nothing is pleasant or unpleasant. Shakespeare said it. There's nothing neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So an interaction comes. It doesn't announce itself as unpleasant. You have to decide that it is. I can say that, oh, God, there's rain clouds in the sky. I hate rain clouds, right? As if I'm going to do anything about it, right? Or you could say, wow, look at the gray. Whoa, it's so beautiful, right? It's completely up to you, right? That beautiful song from Joni Mitchell, Both Sides Now, one of the very early, back in the 60s, she wrote it. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up or down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions, I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Beautiful, beautiful song. And she saw that it's all perception. It's all the perception, right? And you, the perceiver, without taking on the story and interpretation of that moment, are absolutely, well, you're always in the now, but consciously realizing you're in the now. And then you are free from all suffering and unpleasantness, because it's created by the mind. Right? There is no unpleasantness in life. None. It's always in the mind. Life is just life. You know, somebody wants an interaction, interacting with them. That's it. It will be whatever you say that it is. Soltantillo. But yes, that was super helpful, and I'm going to make a note of today's satsang. Have to listen to it a few times. Good. Yes, good. Jay said, yes, I was asking about you. So I answered both. Good. Oh, my goodness. I hate it when this thing suddenly just scrolls to the bottom. Marlo, I was going to ask what Johanna asked. I'm going to add this. How does one distinguish between mundane and numb? You talked about feelings and how some seek those high feelings. I think I'm one of those seekers. How does one know if it's just numbness? Because why would be doing this work to heal and feel better and be at peace? Well, yes, of course. We're not doing this kind of inquiry in order to feel shitty. We want to become free of suffering. But becoming free of suffering It doesn't mean we have a bunch of good feelings. This is what people do. To try to get free of suffering, they try to create constant good feelings, right? And so we're now attached to the feelings. But feelings are completely flighty. They come and go. They bounce all over the place. You can't control them, right? So how do you distinguish between mundane and numb? Well, just notice the feeling. You have an inner eye that can discern. But notice both mundane and numb are both being witnessed by you. It's really important. No matter how numb it is, right? I just have no feeling whatsoever. You're aware of it. Right? Now, so what's the problem then? Well, the problem comes when the mind says, I shouldn't be numb. I should be feeling something. I'm supposed to be seeking a high. I'm supposed to be trying to get something. Well, that's just a story, right? What you're feeling right in this moment. Get to know peace. Get to know, give peace a chance, right? Just whatever the feeling is, it is being perceived by peace. Peace is the ultimate perceiver. Okay? So put aside the word mundane, right? Because it has certain overhead to it. Right? Some events in our life, right, are just, gotta do it. Or, nothing. Some are, I wish I didn't have to do it. Some are, oh boy, I can't wait to do it, right? Now, that's just life, right? That's the fluctuation of life. So let's not put a story on that. But if something's just in the middle of the road, it's neutral. I'm neither excited about it or not. Like doing the dishes. I'm not excited about it, but I don't mind doing them. Right? So that's mundane. It's just neutral. Right? But now notice, whether it's high, or whether it's low, or whether it's neutral, the perceiver's the same. The perceiver is peace. And it's not mundane or numb, nor is it excited or anxious or anything. It is the stillness that allows everything to be perceived. Right? You can't paint a painting on a canvas that's already been painted on. You need an absolutely clean white canvas to create the picture. So life can only happen against this backdrop of the perfect stillness that is peace. Okay? So if you think you're feeling numb, right, sink more deeply into that feeling. See am I trying to avoid something? Is there something unpleasant I don't want to see? Is there something I'm afraid to experience? Right? But then sink all the way. Just don't try to intellectually work out questions like that, because obviously we don't want to go through life feeling numb. But sink back into that place that is aware of the numbness. And you'll find that the numbness just isn't isolated. There's stuff around. There's thoughts. There's sensation. There's all sorts. It's going to be a complex. It's not going to be just a thing. And suddenly you'll see that there's more life there than you realized. But what's most important is to recognize who you are. Right? It is peace that perceives. Because if it wasn't, there'd be noise there and we couldn't perceive it. Like trying to listen to somebody talk and the radio's blasting and people are being loud and shouting and stuff, right? You can't hear. In order to hear, you need silence. You're the silent background, right? And all the rest of this stuff is appearing on it. Beautiful. I'm so glad to see you here, Marla. Nazrin, very insightful. Thank you, GP. You're very welcome. Why would we do this work if the feeling of peace was not a good feeling? I'm hoping I'm making sense. I hope it is a good feeling, but it's more than a feeling. More than a feeling, like the tune from Boston. It's more than a feeling. It's a state of, it's your being. It's the reality of your being, and the fruit of that is good feeling. right? And the more you know who you are, the less bad feelings there are. The more good feelings, because peace would generate nothing but. But that's the perfume, right? If you want the fragrance, you have to get the rose, right? What people want is the good feeling, but they don't want the rose, right? Right? They're trying to grab the fragrance, right, without the flower. They're trying to eat the fruit without the tree, right? You can't do it. You need to find the source of good feelings, right? And not just seek the good feelings. The peace is the source of it, but it itself is not a feeling. If it was, it would have a definition, wouldn't it? It would also have to come and go. And if there was this feeling here, right, there'd be a conflict with other feelings. So peace cannot be a feeling in and of itself. It's not a denial of feeling. It actually liberates it. It liberates you from seeking good feelings, right? And then you sink into peace, and what do you find? All sorts of good feelings, right? And even the ones that aren't so good, like grief and stuff, they're all natural, right? No non-GMO, nothing artificial added. They're natural. To feel grief, of course you're going to feel grief, and you genuinely feel the grief. You won't fight it, you won't put it off. And when you're happy, oh, so happy, just delightfully happy, excitedly happy, so happy the body can't contain it. So, thank you again, Marlo. Gunnar says, "Amor vincit omnia." I wish I knew what that meant. Love conquers all? Love is victorious over all. That's what it means, isn't it? Doesn't it? Love is victorious. Amen, brother. Nazarene, I feel emotionally touched by the way you answer the questions. I can feel the love and caring in your voice. It feels good to be here. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. But, that love you're feeling in me is actually in you. Otherwise you couldn't feel it, right? It isn't a possession, right? This form, is being used by love. GP is just the name given to this form. There is no GP. He doesn't exist. He's a thought. He's an idea, right? And this body is just this ongoing process that got put in motion because my parents had a night of fun. And they gave it a name. And it's just a process going on, isn't it? It's just life functioning, and then eventually it'll peter out. There's nobody here, right? The only thing here is love. That's all there is. Right? That is the self. Love is the self. Beautiful. Bo, hello, Bo. Good to see you. Bo up in BC. Mary, hello, Mary. Truth Loops, thank you. You're welcome. Bo, I'm trying to do less and somehow retire, but life gets new tasks for me daily. If I don't attend to them, I affect everybody around me. How do you get some space? Very good. Well, remember, my friend, right? You're up there like I am. You've lived your life in a certain way with relationships with family and friends, maybe some work. If you're retired, maybe there's still some kind of a job going on. Men always need something to do, right? So recognize that there's a certain momentum there. And so because that momentum's there, even though you've chosen to retire, or at least withdraw somewhat to whatever degree you want, that momentum's still there. So new task. So it really becomes, it really is up to you to create the shifts, right? He says, if I don't attend to them, I affect everybody around me, right? Well, there's the hook. That would get you enslaved. You have to look at it and say, well, okay, I'm not here to attend to the tasks that everybody gives me. And yes, of course, if I don't do them, they're going to affect everybody around me. But I have a new goal in life. So I'm withdrawing from this. This is a real conscious choice. I'm withdrawing from this. I need space. So you make space for yourself, right? And maybe some of those tasks will fall by the wayside. Or maybe you'll get an inspiration. Somebody else can do this. I don't need to do this. or little by little, your intention and your clarity will take root, and that will shift the energy around you. You'll find that they simply will not be coming in the same way. But be careful, right? Because it's a transition to a different time of life. You may be actually inviting these tasks to keep you engaged, right? And if they do fall away, you may start to miss them, because when they fall away, that space, if you haven't experienced it before, might not be comfortable. So really look at it carefully, right? It's a wonderful opportunity to see how rhythms we get into. And there's a very natural tendency of us and our nervous systems to not want to get out of a rhythm once it's been established. So there's a part of you that is wanting to keep the tasks coming, right? So just get more and more clear about, no, I need some space, and start finding places where you can give yourself space. And don't expect it to be this, gift. Here's your space, right? Right? It's a transition. It's a transition you're making, and you're governing the speed at which it's happening, right? And believe me, the more conviction and the more rooted you are in your own intention about it, that energy will affect others, and you'll find the space opening. Thanks for that, Bo. So good to hear from you. Thank you, GP, for more deeply inspiring satsang. Oh, you're so welcome, Tatiana. Oh, look, I'm running out of questions. And I've already run out of time. So thank you for your wonderful satsang. Thank you, Penny. Jay, thank you, GP. Always refreshing. Have a safe trip back to Seattle. Aren't your family back there right now? Yep. My granddaughter, my son, my sister, and her wife. Yeah. So, yes, I have family there. Yeah. So it's gonna be nice. Yeah. Thank you, GP. That was very helpful, and I'm glad to be here too. Oh, so good. Ava, extremely liberating and soothing satsang for me. Thank you so much. I needed this today, dear G. Thank you, Ava. All right, perfect. I made it through the queue. Lovely. Well, and another beautiful Sunday afternoon or evening has come to pass. Remember, satsang really isn't just 2 hours on Sunday. It is whenever you turn your attention from the external to you. Whenever you turn towards the sacred, the God within, the sacred space, the inner sanctum, that is towards yourself, you're in satsang. So, thank you all for being here. Namaste.